What's going on today? It's been a while since I've done a YouTube video. The lighting it might get a little dark, but I hope to be a little bit briefer than I usually am, which is probably going to be very difficult because me being brief is just not part of the universe's plan, God's plan. I'm an atheist. Anyway, this is about retail allocation, the allocation game, and what a game it is. And let's just dive right into this. So we all know, whatever you want to call these wines, unicorn wines, cherry wines, any particular type of wine that is highly desirable, that kind of bends marketplace rules. And usually a producer, has a wine or many wines that where the demand exceeds the supply at that price. And, when I was first coming up, these wines used to really kind of all be high-end wines. First Groves, high-end Burgundy, the Guigal, Lalas, Clos St. Hune was literally like the only Riesling anybody cared about. And, in order to get Clos St. Hune, oh my God, you had to buy like all this other kind of like mediocre Trimbach in order to get like 5-6 bottles. But we'll get into that because, oh man. There's nothing I hated as a retailer being forced to buy other wines I didn't believe in to get a wine that I did believe in. Oh, it's a long story. It's very frustrating. So how do you solve this? I kind of have an idea of what should happen. I have a producer, let's just say producer X, and I thought producer X was going to leave me, and I was very scared, and I had kind of like this problem. How do I retain producer X? And producer X was a very good value. I still have producer X. You will never know what producer X is. And basically, the idea was I will tell producer X that I will buy these cherry wines at a higher price, or that the producer should increase the price. I have a customer who's a good friend of mine who tells my producers when she visits them to raise their prices. Thank God they don't listen to her. But they should raise their prices. Especially if they have a wine that exceeds the demand at a particular price. And at least say that I can, and you have to tell them, I can sell this much more at the higher price. That is super important. These are the three things that have to happen. Tell a producer they will buy more wine at a higher price. The producer should increase the price and at least say that I can sell more wine at this price. Excuse me, I had a little low battery sign. God, my hair is so fucked up. Anyway, so that's what should happen in an ideal world if I was the king. All right, but I'm not the king. So you know what happens? Spoiler, bullshit. The distributor stores and restaurants that need to buy a certain amount of other wines to get a certain amount of that wine. That made no sense. The retailer or restaurant ends up with wines that are not as good as the other wines at the price that they would want. Okay, sorry, I have little notes written for this. I have no idea why I wrote this. All right. Basically, the distributor extorts the restaurants or the retail stores. I just wrote this very simple concept in hieroglyphics almost. All right. So the distributor forces these people to buy wines that they don't want to get a certain amount of other wine. It always used to be with Burgundy before all Burgundy went crazy. You'd have to buy a lot of different Fourier Premier Crus in order to get the Griot. There was nothing that was really allocated before Fourier became a superstar. And it just sucks. So sometimes though, if the wine, let's say Romanée-Conti, is in a portfolio of a bunch of other wines, and there is some shit in Wilson Daniels' portfolio, we can all admit it, you have to buy 150 cases of shit Sauvignon Blanc from, New Zealand. And the math I don't know. I used to do this a lot, and the math, I never really spent that much time on it, but I really don't think it works out. You buy 150 cases of Sauvignon Blanc at $5 a bottle. You sell it for $9.99, which is actually really good. And you get 6 bottles of Romanée-Conti for, this is a long time ago, for maybe $3,000 a bottle, and you sell it for $6,000. I don't know how the math works there, but that was a typical thing. Or you're buying some other California Cab for $30, or whatever. You kind of get your basic wines that just the people who walk in or who you don't really give a shit about, to be honest, walk-in traffic, whatever. You buy these wines so you can get the cherries, which you give to your high-end customers. It is what it is, and it's ridiculous. So who benefits from this? Obviously, the distributor benefits. They sell lots of wine, other than the cherry wine, which everybody wants, and they make tons of money. Yay. The top customers are the retailer. Generally, spoiler, rich people get all the cherry wine, while the not so good wines, or very good wines, but definitely below, kind of go to everybody else. Or the less good producers, however you want to put it. These less good producers, they get more of their wine sold because retailers are buying them to get their cherry wines. So it's like this illusion, like I would hate to be producer X, who's making all these sales, and then he goes out on a work with or something with a salesman, or, the salesman gets drunk and he's like, listen, producer X, I sell so much of your wine, and the only reason is because we tie it to like Roumier. Producer X must feel like shit when that happens. Like, I would feel terrible when that happens. But it happens in every portfolio all the time, constantly. It's ridiculous, and it's absurd, and it's sad. So who gets hurt by this, as I was saying? The non-millionaire customers, which is what? Like everybody. Because they are being advised by the staff in the store, or the owners, whoever, to buy less desirable wines. Because, there are wines today that are inexpensive, that are awesome, that the rich people still snag up as well. Anderle and Mole, in my portfolio, the Anderle and Mole single vineyards, for example. I have no idea what other stores are doing with them, and I'm not doing, all this bullshit with them, but still, it's crazy, So the producers who make the cherry wines are getting hurt because they should be getting more money for their wines, period, end. But then again, it is their fault, isn't it? Because they are underpricing their wines because they don't have a grasp of the market. The wine market is a funny thing. And I think the people who have the least grasp of it sometimes are producers, I always hear stories about famous producers in Burgundy that are just blown away and shocked that their wines are so high prices. I mean, whatever, Here's a fainting couch, but come on, let's be realistic. Supply and demand. You make 400 cases. You know how many millionaires are around the world? The price is going to go up. The market works. The market works. That's the way it works. So, what's the solution to this? I have a solution. Producers of premium wines, the high-end shit, should have more than one distributor in the U.S. I know, heresy, this and that, but that's the way it should happen. And it's starting to happen, there's no question. I've got some people and they have other distributors somewhere and it works out beautifully. I've had some people and other distributors have bullied their way into my portfolio by threatening my producers, and it is what it is. I'm a small guy, but I have many producers, to their credit, who really... they like the fact that I'm a small guy, that I have a particular voice, and it helps them sell other wine to their other distributors anyway. And the cherry producers would then get market information as well as the demand for their products and learn how to price them. Because if you have it across 5 or 6 distributors, there's more information to glean from. 5 or 6 distributors are going to cover very different parts of the country, or different regions, or whatever, different countries, et cetera, et cetera. Or maybe they could hire consultants in the U.S. who could tell them what is actually happening. I mean, it's not ignorance, it's just these guys, all the producers I work with are very, very busy, and, I tell them how the market is. I'm very honest with them, and I tell them exactly how the market responds and this and that. Every wine that I sell, I believe in, and some sell and some, obviously do not sell. Some sell much more, some sell much less. I'm like a movie studio, man. I never know what's going to be a huge hit. Anyone think the Blair Witch Project was going to be a huge hit? Hell no! All right? Or maybe distributors could be more honest about the U.S. market with their suppliers. That's the bottom line. These suppliers should know how their wines are being used. Oh my God. I remember the Allocation Game. Oh my God. It was just, you were praying, you were doing all this business, and if you didn't get the proper allocation, oh my God, that's when a retailer maybe has the biggest fit ever. And when a retailer didn't get their proper allocation, I had to buy all this shit, and I only get 12 bottles of this, and it's only going to one guy, which is everybody's fault, but I mean, it's ridiculous, and it's a shame. But there's many ways to, I think, fix this problem, which I have gotten to. But the one issue is, with not the expensive wines, although it's really weird how I think wines are escalating much quicker than they used to back in the day. Overnois, Gonan, VA Vin, these wines, became hundreds of dollars overnight. And, the quickening, of Chave Hermitage from where it was when I started to now has been kind of more of like a slow build, And, I don't know, I mean, there are certain wines that, the allocation game is so funny too, because there's the market price, and then there's also retailers who will sell their top clients these wines for good prices, and it's a delicate balance, man. At what price do you sell the wine, and this and that, and it's just I find it just interesting that a lot of small retailers will sell their top cherry wines for, you have to understand the cost of like some of these wines that are like very expensive, like Gonan VA Vin, Gonan regular, Overnois. You have to understand that the estate, these wines don't cost shit. Ravenot, Le Clos, man. I know the estate price of that wine, like what he sells it to other people for. And let's just say Francois Ravenot is not making as much money as he should, and it's, and that really bums me out, because these guys work so hard, they're farmers at heart, and they just don't know the market, and, people are not, we live in a great world, but do we really live in a world where everybody is this wonderful, honest broker? There are bad actors or people who are morally ambiguous, and there's definitely some of them in the wine business, unfortunately. And the last thing that I mean, for me, I look at the original sin as an importer is to put unnecessary pressure and demands on the producers you work with. Like I've never, ever haggled the price of a producer ever. They set the price because they do the work and they know how much they need to make. Period, end. And I've heard crazy stories, about producers who raise their price on, some star bottling for $1, and the importer is like, I'm not buying anymore at that price, but we need you to do improvements at the winery, sir. No! I mean, no, that's a true story. I am not kidding. I have heard nightmare stories about that, and all I want is success, for my producers, and, they can work with other people as long as I can still continue working with them. And as I said before, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But more times than not, it usually does. But at the end of the game, allocation is a game. It can be solved. But the distributors are making a lot of money. I'd say they're making the most money when it comes to this. Maybe there's some savvy retailers every now and then. But at the end of the day, the distributors are making the most money from this allocation game because they're selling lots of junk wine or less good wine that they could not sell without these cherries. There are portfolios out there that are designed around like 4 or 5 estates, top 2 or 3 wines, and everything is tied to it. It's just crazy, and it's a game, and what's that? It's, I guess you could say, whatever. It's all in the game, from The Wire, because it does seem like street drug dealing at certain times, but it can be improved, and I hope it does improve. And shoot me your ideas. I'd love to know. Are people in retail and your allocation nightmare stories? Hit me up or down in the comments. Thank you, and another video hopefully soon.